Hey folks, today in this video, I want to talk about water sources. When you are thinking about setting up a homestead property, you really want to think about where your water is coming from. And ideally, you can have at least two sources of water. Now, when we do our Homestead Accelerator program, I look at properties every single week and I list properties all around North America. We exclusively look for properties that have two sources of water. Now, why is it important to have two sources of water? Well, the simple answer is one of them might not work out sometime. You might have a mechanical problem with it, an electrical failure. That source just might not be available for some reason. So it's really important to have two sources. Now, there's all kinds of sources of water. When you're talking about being dependent on the system and the utility system, you turn the taps on and you've got water. That would be one source. That might come from a community system, a district system, a municipal system, whatever it might be. You turn that water on. You have no say in the matter. You pay for that service and you turn on your water and it's available there for you. Since it's disconnected from you, the type of that water source doesn't really matter. You just turn the tap on and it's there. It could be a large watershed. Maybe you're living in sort of a peri-urban area. There's a watershed that collects water and it stores it and then it distributes it through a system of pipes and whatnot. Or you might live in an urban setting and you turn the water on in the taps and it comes from the city filtration system. So it recycles the toilet water and then adds some chlorine or fluoride to it and then gives it back to you. So both of those settings are not a good scenario for somebody who wants to be off grid, but they might be a start and then you might want to develop something else. So let's start firstly by looking at the water source that I had when I first bought this property, and then we'll look at some of the systems that I've added since. Coming down into this area here, this piece of infrastructure was here when I bought this property, and it was the source of water. So this area that I'm in is a riparian area, and just below me here, there's a pond. And this pond was already here when I bought this property, but this summer we dug it out so that we could put more water in there. But the really neat thing about this pond is that it's connected to this culvert that's underneath this staircase. And this was the primary source of water on this property. So underneath this little stair here is a culvert. And right now I'm actually pumping water from this. So this culvert goes down, I believe it's 7 or 8 feet. And there's about 4 feet of water in there so far. And that water is in the ground here. And it's also connected to that pond. So actually by pumping this culvert, I'm inadvertently pumping water in that pond. Though the level that it's at right there, which is about 4 feet deep, I won't be able to pump it beyond that with this culvert, just because this doesn't go deep enough to get that. But with that 4 feet of water there's very little water in that pond. And so what the original owners did with this is they would pump water from here into this. And this is quite a large cistern. It's a concrete foundation that's basically a cistern. So if I come in here, I can see that there's water stored in there. And it stores about 40,000 liters. And so this was the only setup that was here when I bought this property. And it works okay. It's definitely not enough water to run the gardens and all the other things that I do up here, but it was a start. And so one thing else I'll say is I've improved the plumbing of this. This plumbing that goes in here now is connected to my whole water system. So I can pump water from this cistern and dump it into that, or pump water from this pit well and dump it into this cistern. I can also close off the cistern and then pump this water up into my pond, which is actually what I'm doing now. And since we're here, we might as well talk about that as a Actually, we might as well talk about everything here because there's actually a lot going on here. This pond is another form of storage. Now, this pond doesn't collect water very effectively because it's higher up in elevation. It's also a larger mass. And right now I'm actually pumping water into it from the ground. And I'm also running some sprinklers on the ice to smooth out the ice so I can have a nice skating rink for this winter. But this is another form of storage for me on the homestead here, and we just dug this year. And so the way that this will be filled with water comes from our second source, which is well, actually no, it's still our first source is snowmelt. That's where this pit well source comes from, is snowmelt. Not very much from rain, because you'd have to have really prolonged periods of rain, which actually in November we did. And then I start to see this pit well fill up, and I start to see that pond fill up. We've had very little snow this year so far, and it's not enough to affect anything at all. But that was my first source of water, was snowmelt. But I'm now increasing that with this pond, because now I'll be able to hold a way larger amount of water in there and then pump it from this pit well into this pond. So what I've done essentially is I've expanded on the water system that was already there. Let's go and look at number 2. All right, this is number 2. This is my primary well. This goes down over 300 feet, drilled through straight granite bedrock. And it's pretty amazing. It brings me 10 GPM year round. I can pump from this well seemingly unlimited, and water just comes out. And it's neat because I'm on the top of a mountain, and my well is shallower than all my neighbors who are in the valley, and my well also produces more. So I've tapped into some kind of fissure in the rock that just seems to produce endlessly. I haven't noticed a dip in the amount of water that comes from the well at any time of year. And even right now I'm pumping, because I've got these great solar days. We're getting so much sunlight right now. I'm dumping a lot of that excess electricity that I'm producing into pumping water. And that's why I'm running both of these wells right now in conjunction, and they're both going from opposite end of the line, and they're teeing off, and I'm dumping about 18 gallons a minute into that pond right now. 8 of those gallons a minute is coming from the pit well, and the other 10 is coming from this well. And then this well goes, so this is the top of the well, and 8 feet below that is what's called a pitless adapter. So there's basically the casing of the well that goes down, and then 8 feet underneath there's about a 2-inch hole drilled in there, and then you put a pitless adapter, which is as the pipes come up from the pump that's deep in that well, comes up, takes a right angle, and goes through the casing of that, goes through the casing of the well, and then it goes through straight into my house. So it stays 8 feet underground here, and then that water goes into the house, into the pressure tanks in the house that are more or less just the same as you'd have in any house. You have water coming from the source, and it goes into the pressure tanks, and then that's your localized water. And so those pressure tanks aren't actually hooked up right now in the house, but all this is dug into the utility room of that house, and then it goes into pipes. You can see some right underneath the solar panel here, and they go up to the cisterns 100 feet above us, and then those cisterns gravity feed into all of the water on the homestead here. Those cisterns are deactivated during the winter because I don't need them. If I want to get water from the well in the winter, as I am right now, I just pump directly from the well. I've disengaged the cisterns because I can't hold water in those lines overnight. And in fact, every time that I pump water like I am today, at the end of the day, I have to go and empty those lines out. I'll do another video at another time on my whole irrigation system here. It's quite complex. But I run my main line as a 1.25 inch prime 100 line. That's my main delivery line that goes to everywhere on the homestead, various locations. And when I want to pump water during the day like this, at nighttime, I stop because I don't want to just keep pulling from my batteries, because, you know, we're getting, you know, over 12 hours of darkness right now. And so I'd have to be pumping from the batteries for 12 hours at 1.5 or 2 kilowatts. So that's quite a bit of power to pull from the batteries. So I shut it down at night and I drain it all out. And I can do that fairly easily because my property is so topographic that my lines always drain downhill, and I have I have valves that I can open at the bottom of these lines, so I can drain all this out fairly quickly. It takes me about 20 minutes to decommission it, but it's not that big of a deal. So that covers my second source and another container for storage. So I want to show you another one right here. And actually, before I go down, let me just talk about rainwater, because this is now our third source. I'm doing some experiments with it right now to kind of figure out what I want to do with it. We don't get a lot of rain in this boreal climate. We're a zone 5A, and the boreal climate is the high elevation softwood forest regions that go all over Canada and many parts of the northern United States, where you have cold and snowy winters and dry summers. So those are the main characteristics of this climate. And we get about 14 inches of rain or less a year, but we get up to 10 feet of snow. So rain is my third source because it's, in a way, my least important. My well is my best source. It's my most consistent. I can pull from it year round and get something. But snowmelt is a huge one for me. And in that pond we started with down there, about 10 to 20 million liters of water pass through that area that I can harvest and put into that other pond or move that water anywhere else on my property. But rain is fairly decent. We only get rain, we'll get periods of rain throughout the year, but nothing significant. Most of our rain comes in at the end of May into June, and then we get it again late October into November. That's when we get all of our rain. All those 14 inches we get come during that period of time. But what I've discovered is that my roofs are very effective for harvesting rain, and I've got the gutters all connected and they come out at one point. I'll show you. We'll go down below. And it was part of the reason I designed the house this way, is to have a single pitch roof. It's really simple in construction. It's cheaper. And then you only need one gutters on one side of the roof. I like that. Also, for managing snow, it makes it easier because it all comes off on one side and I just push it off the landing here. It does pose a risk if I let the snow get too built up that it could slide off and crush somebody. But this is why I don't have snow stops on here. I just let the snow fall off as it does. And it does fairly well. This pitch is a 212 on both of these roofs. And so I, of course, will just come out and pull it off. I have to come and manage the snow on my solar panels all winter. So managing the snow on the roof is not a big deal. But the amount of rain I can collect on this is quite amazing. So you can see that I have gutters on this one, and that goes down one spout and it goes down and it ends up in front of the house from some underground piping that I've put in, 4-inch piping. And then these gutters on this whole roof all go down and they go to an underground Big O pipe that is sloped out this way, and it all comes around that corner. We've got this middle connecting roof, which I haven't put the gutter on yet, and it's not finished yet either. It's got the peel and stick on it, but it doesn't have the roofing on it. And this does shed, and I've got a gutter to go on that will go down this pipe right here, and then it'll go along this whole one. But I was playing around with this just a number of weeks ago when we had a period of very cloudy and wet weather. I wanted to measure how much water I could pull off just this one roof. And then I did a calculation of the square footage of the front of the greenhouse and that garage, and kind of came up with about 10,000 liters a day in sort of mid rainy periods that I can harvest. So what I've set up here is just a simple cistern, and I had all this equipment, all this stuff already. When I first moved here, I bought these containers because I had some other folks living on the property while we were in construction, and they needed water containers because I didn't have all my water infrastructure set up yet. And I also needed them for potential fire suppression. But needless to say, this is a 2,000 liter tank, and it's almost half full already from just the little bit of dew and frost we get every morning that settles on the roof and just melts off and comes through here. I'm not kidding you. This isn't even from rain right now. This is just from frost, wax and waning. So really DIY setup right now, and all this is going to get buried once I finish all this. But I wanted to just put something here to see what it would do. And it's quite amazing. So that's the big O pipe that comes out from my gutters right there. And then I've just coupled it onto this 3-inch PVC, put it at a slope. And I just came in with my skid steer and just actually grabbed my mini excavator and I kind of carved out a little area I could put this container onto on a skid. And I've got water on demand right here, rainwater. So rainwater is a really good one. Now, for me to be entirely rainwater up here would be very difficult. I would have to have a lot of infrastructure, a lot of storage, and I'd probably have to have storage beyond ponds because the ponds can still evaporate. In our really dry summer, water just gets sucked up very quickly. So if I wanted to be more based on rainwater, I'd have to have a lot more infrastructure, maybe underground, maybe something like this, but underground. But it's quite amazing. And so all along the front of the house here, all of these end up down this way. And you can actually see this all slopes down there. And right now I've been working on this, bringing this grade out of the front of the house with material that I have on site here, and I'm just bringing it all down. And so I've got another water out that comes there. I've got the gutters from the front of the house all come out there, and the gutters from the front of the greenhouse all come out there, as well as the back of that garage actually all works its way around here. And that can all come out right on this one. And so once I'm finished all this, I'll have another pipe that gets buried here that just brings all of this down. And basically where all this wood pile stuff here is, that's going to be my point right there, where all the water from this whole building on the front and back ends up. So it'll be a huge amount of water that I could do something with, and it all just drains down. But what I think I might do, you guys tell me, what would you do? Curious what you think. Is I'd like to build maybe another type of pond in here, a landscaped type pond, or I might do some more because I have to bury a lot of this anyways and bring this ground around here to wrap the house, that I might just bury some containers as well. And that would be the first place that the rain would go to. And then I thought about putting a pump in there and also pumping that back into the main line, which I can tie into right by that solar panel. And I could effectively pump that water from here right back into the big pond. So that's another thing that I could do. And I thought maybe what I could do is have some sort of underground storage here, and then its spillover spills out into a little landscaped waterfall area and maybe a little kind of pond I could make out of concrete or something. Might be kind of a neat landscaped feature coupled with storage. But the thing that's so cool about this is I did a thing on my house that I'm pretty proud of. And I didn't know what I was going to do it for, but I've already found a use for it. So before we poured the slab in the basement of our house here, what I did was in the utility room in the house, I thought I should put a line underneath the slab to get water in or out or something, or put a conduit for a communication line, an electrical wire, whatever. So I did that. And I'm so glad I did, because now, so I've got this sleeve here, and in this sleeve, I've got a 1 1/4 line. I put a cap on it, and I've got a 1/2 inch line that could be used as a conduit for something. But the cool thing about this now is if I were to set up some kind of collection system in here for rainwater, in an emergency, let's say there was a problem with my well, the main well, the deep well that we looked at earlier, number 2, I could essentially pull water into the house from whatever I had collected here. So I have a backup. And if I can pump that water through there into the utility of the room, into the utility room in the house, then from there, I can send that water wherever I want. So none of this is complete yet. This is all still very rough construction, and you know, it's still studs and stuff in here. We're not doing any finishing yet, taking a break for winter. But this is where the water comes in from my well, underground from here. So this goes straight underground to that dug well, or the drilled well that we looked at. That water comes in, and then I can send it to my greenhouse from there. Or it goes into here and then goes outside to the cisterns and goes into the main line that I have everything right now. And right now, this is pumping water through here into the pond. But what those extra lines that I showed you outside, I also put here. So these lines are coming right from out of the house. And I did this before we finished the concrete. So I thought, yeah, I should do it just in case. And I didn't think of it at the time. I didn't think of what it would be used for, but now I have a use for it. So those are my 3 sources of water. Let me know what your guys' sources of water are. And just a reminder about the Homestead Accelerator. We do that every single week. And I list properties all around North America. We're starting to list more in Canada, actually, because Canada's prices are starting to slide, and they're really going to start to slide in 2024. So I think when that happens, we'll have our work cut out for us. But basically what we do is we find homestead properties around the world, but mostly North America, because that's where most of our clients are. And we do assessments of those properties. We look at the water sources, power sources, capacity for growing food, the geography, everything, the vegetation, the wildlife, everything on that property. And then we post those every single week for our members. And if you're interested in the Homestead Accelerator program, right now we have our Black Friday offer. It's our best offer of the year. For a one-time payment, you can sign up to the Freedom Farmers platform with all that's in there. The community, the FromTheField.tv content, the 20+ courses that we have and more coming, and the Homestead Accelerator program, which in and of itself is extraordinarily valuable. So if you're interested in that offer, this is our Black Friday offer. There'll be a link in the video or down below in the show notes. All right, folks, we'll see you in the next one.